Before we get into today's story, I need to ask you something right now. As you're listening to this, there's probably a mirror somewhere in the room with you. Maybe it's behind you. Maybe it's to your side. Here's what I want you to do, and I'm being completely serious here. Don't look at it until I'm done telling you this story, because what happened to 12-year-old Tyler Mason in March of 2021 might just change the way you think about mirrors forever. And trust me, you're going to want to hear this one all the way through. So, it's March 2021. We're still in the thick of the pandemic. Kids are spending way too much time on TikTok, and like every few weeks, there's some new viral challenge making the rounds. You remember these, right? The Ice Bucket Challenge, the Mannequin Challenge, Tide Pods, though hopefully you skipped that last one. Well, this particular challenge was called the Mirror Dare, and on the surface, it seemed harmless enough. You'd set up your phone, stare into a mirror, say your name backwards, and then ask your reflection a simple question. Want to trade places? Most kids would do it. Nothing would happen. They'd laugh, post a video, and move on with their lives. The challenge was supposed to be about how long you could stare at yourself without getting creeped out. But here's the thing about mirrors that most people don't realize. They're not just pieces of glass. They're portals. And sometimes, when you knock on a portal long enough, something knocks back. Tyler Mason was your typical 7th grader from Cedar Falls, Iowa. Loved video games, hated homework, and was absolutely obsessed with going viral on TikTok. So when he saw the Mirror Dare trending, he thought, this is it. This is my ticket to internet fame. He set up his phone, positioned himself in front of his bedroom mirror, and said the words, "Rely, that's Tyler, backwards, wanna trade?" Now, what happened next is where the story gets really disturbing. Because Tyler didn't just stare into that mirror. That mirror stared back, and something inside it answered him. Within 24 hours, Tyler's parents noticed their son was different. He was eating with his left hand instead of his right. He flinched when they called his name. And their dog, who had been attached to Tyler since he was a puppy, wouldn't go near him. But it wasn't until they checked the security camera footage from his bedroom that they realized a horrifying truth. Their real son was trapped inside the mirror, frantically banging on the glass from the inside. So if Tyler was stuck in a reflection, what exactly was living in their house? Let me paint you a picture of Tyler Mason's life in March 2021. He's 12 years old, living in Cedar Falls, Iowa. You know, one of those quiet Midwestern towns where the biggest excitement is usually the Friday night football game. Tyler's got that typical 7th grade existence. He's obsessed with Fortnite. He thinks algebra is a form of torture, and like every kid his age, he's completely addicted to TikTok. We're talking hours every day, just scrolling through an endless feed of dance videos, pranks, and whatever weird challenge happens to be trending that week. And that's exactly how he found it, the Mirror Dare. Now, here's the thing about viral challenges. They spread like wildfire, especially when they tap into something primal, something that makes your skin crawl just enough to be thrilling. The Mirror Dare was different from the usual TikTok trends. It wasn't about dancing or lip-syncing. It was about staring into the darkness and asking it to stare back. Tyler first saw the challenge on a Tuesday night around 11 p.m. He was supposed to be asleep, but instead, he was under his covers, phone glowing in his face, watching video after video of kids doing the same thing. They'd position themselves in front of a mirror, usually in a dimly lit room. They'd say their name backwards. And let me tell you, some of these names sounded absolutely demonic in reverse. Then they'd ask one simple question. Want to trade places? Most of the videos were exactly what you'd expect. Kids giggling, nothing happening, maybe a jump scare edit thrown in for views. Typical fake internet stuff. But then Tyler came across a few videos that were different. These weren't polished. They were grainy, shaky, like they were filmed on older phones. And in these videos, something was off. The reflections didn't quite match up. Kids would turn their heads, but their reflections would lag behind by just a split second. Or worse, they'd walk away from the mirror, but their reflection would stay put, still staring out at the camera. One video in particular stuck with him. A girl about his age, standing in front of a bathroom mirror. She did the challenge. Nothing happened. She laughed and started to walk away. But as she moved toward the door, her reflection smiled. Not the girl, just a reflection. And it kept smiling until the video cut off. Now, Tyler wasn't stupid. He knew most of this stuff was fake. But here's what got him. The view counts. The fake videos? A few thousand views, maybe, but those unsettling ones, the ones that felt real, they were pulling in millions. Comment sections going crazy. People sharing them, talking about them, trying to figure out if they were real or not. And Tyler wanted that. He wanted to be the kid everyone was talking about at school. He wanted his video to be the one that made people question what they were seeing. So he decided he was going to do it. But he was going to do it right. No fake editing, no tricks. Just him, a mirror, and whatever happened, happened. Tyler waited until the following Friday night. His parents were asleep, the house was quiet, and he had his bedroom to himself. He'd been planning this all week, figuring out the best angle, the right lighting, making sure his phone was fully charged. His bedroom had this old antique mirror his grandmother had given him. It was probably from the 1940s or 50s, with this ornate wooden frame that looked like something out of a Gothic horror movie, perfect for what he had in mind. He positioned his phone on his desk, angled it just right so you could see both him and his reflection clearly. He dimmed the lights until there was just enough illumination to make out his face. Then he hit record. Tyler took a deep breath, looked directly into the mirror, and said it. Rely? That's Tyler backwards. But with that weird backwards at the end that made it sound even more unsettling. Then he leaned forward, stared directly into his own eyes in the reflection, and whispered, "Wanna trade places?" For about 10 seconds, nothing happened. Tyler just stared at himself, and his reflection stared back. Normal mirror stuff. He was probably thinking this was going to be just another boring video that nobody would care about. But then, and this is where it gets really disturbing, Tyler blinked. Just a normal blink. But his reflection? His reflection blinked about half a second later. Like it was copying him, but with a delay. Tyler noticed it immediately. He blinked again, deliberately this time. Same thing. His reflection followed, but not quite in sync. He tilted his head to the right. His reflection tilted left, then corrected itself. Now, Tyler's not thinking supernatural horror at this point. He's thinking this is perfect. This is exactly the kind of weird stuff that goes viral. So he keeps going. He starts making different faces, moving his hands around, trying to get his reflection to do that delay thing again. And that's when something in the mirror smiled. Not Tyler. Tyler wasn't smiling, but his reflection was. A slow, deliberate smile that spread across his face, while Tyler's actual expression remained completely neutral. Tyler immediately stopped recording. He jumped back in the mirror, heart racing, and grabbed his phone to check the footage. He rewound it, watched it again, and sure enough, there it was, clear as day, his reflection smiling while he wasn't. His first thought was, this is it. This is going to make me famous. But then he looked back at the mirror, and his reflection was still there, still staring, still smiling, even though Tyler had moved away from the mirror and was now standing across the room. That's when Tyler Mason realized that the mirror dare wasn't just a harmless internet challenge. He had asked his reflection if it wanted to trade places, and apparently it had said yes. So Tyler goes to bed that Friday night thinking he's just captured the most viral video of his life. But when he woke up the next morning, his parents immediately knew something was wrong. Now, Karen and Mike Mason had been Tyler's parents for 12 years. They knew their son's habits better than anyone. Tyler was right-handed, had been since he was a toddler. He ate his cereal with his right hand, brushed his teeth with his right hand, threw a baseball with his right hand. It was just who he was. But that Saturday morning at breakfast, Tyler picked up his spoon with his left hand. Not awkwardly, like he was trying something new. Naturally, like he'd been doing it his whole life. Karen thought maybe he was just being weird. You know how kids are, But then she noticed his eyes. They were different, glassy, like he was looking through her instead of at her. And when she said, "Good morning, Tyler," he flinched. Actually flinched like the name hurt him. The strangest part? Their golden retriever, Buddy, who normally followed Tyler around like a shadow, wouldn't go near him. The dog would get close, sniff the air, and then back away with his tail between his legs. Animals know things, you know? They can sense when something's not right. By Sunday, Karen was starting to get seriously worried. Tyler seemed to be looking at everything in their house like he was seeing it for the first time. She decided to test something. Karen had worn the same perfume for the past 5 years, White Tea by Elizabeth Arden. Tyler used to complain about it when she hugged him too tight, said it was too flowery. But that Sunday morning, when she hugged him goodbye before he went to play outside, he stopped and sniffed. "What's that smell?" he asked. "It's just my perfume. Honey, the same one I always wear." Tyler looked at her with this completely blank expression and said, "I don't remember." Now, forgetting your mom's perfume might not seem like a big deal, but Karen knew her son. Tyler remembered everything. He could tell you the exact dialogue from every Marvel movie, remember the stats of every Pokemon card in his collection. This wasn't normal forgetfulness. And then came the name thing. Every time someone called him Tyler, he would pause, like he was trying to remember if that was supposed to be him. His dad would say, "Hey, Tyler, come here." And Tyler would look around confused before responding. By Monday, Tyler was back in school, but his teachers immediately noticed something was off. Mrs. Rodriguez, his math teacher, later told his parents that Tyler spent the entire class period staring at the reflective surface of his calculator screen instead of doing his work. But it was during lunch that things got really weird. Tyler's best friend Jake later told his parents about the conversation they had that day. Jake was eating his sandwich when Tyler leaned over and asked him, "Do you ever feel like you're watching yourself on the other side?" Jake was like, "What do you mean, dude?" And Tyler just stared at him with those glassy eyes and said, "Like when you look in a mirror, but you're not the one looking back." Jake thought Tyler was just being weird, trying to creep him out. But then Tyler asked another question that made Jake's skin crawl. What happens when mirrors forget who they're supposed to show? The guidance counselor, Mrs. Patterson, was called in after Tyler asked his history teacher if she'd ever seen her reflection blink first. These weren't normal 12-year-old questions. These were the kind of questions that made adults uncomfortable, the kind that suggested Tyler was thinking about things no kid should be thinking about. That Tuesday night, Karen and Mike sat down to talk about what was happening with their son. They'd been hoping it was just a phase, maybe some kind of internet challenge thing that would blow over. But the behavior was getting worse, not better. "It's like he doesn't recognize us," Karen told Mike. "Not just the perfume thing. Yesterday I mentioned his favorite pizza place, and he looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language." Mike had noticed it too. Tyler's room was usually a disaster zone. Clothes everywhere, video games scattered around, posters on every wall. But suddenly, Tyler was keeping it spotless. Not neat, spotless. Like he was afraid to touch anything. "And another thing," Mike said, "have you noticed he avoids mirrors now? I caught him brushing his teeth yesterday with his back to the bathroom mirror. Who does that?" They decided to keep a closer eye on him. Maybe set up that security camera they'd been talking about getting for his room. You know, just to make sure he was sleeping okay, wasn't having nightmares or anything. If they had known what that camera was about to show them, they might have made very different choices. It was Karen who found the photos first. She was doing laundry on Wednesday afternoon and went to grab Tyler's phone charger from his desk. His phone was sitting there, unlocked, and she couldn't help but notice he had dozens of photos that had been taken recently. But here's the thing. They were all photos of mirrors. Bathroom mirrors, the hallway mirror, the mirror in his parents' bedroom. Even his phone's black screen when it was turned off. Just mirrors everywhere. Karen scrolled through them, and her blood ran cold. In every single photo, Tyler's reflection was doing something different from what Tyler was doing when he took the picture. In one, Tyler was holding the phone normally, but his reflection was pointing directly at the camera. In another, Tyler was smiling, but his reflection looked terrified. But the last photo in the series was the one that made Karen drop the phone. It was a picture of Tyler's bedroom mirror, taken from across the room. Tyler wasn't even in the frame. He was standing too far away to be reflected. But there was someone in the mirror anyway. A boy who looked exactly like Tyler, pressing his hands against the glass from the inside, his mouth open like he was screaming. That night, Karen and Mike made a decision that would change everything. They were going to find out what was really happening to their son. They set up a security camera in Tyler's room, pointed directly at his bed. What they captured on that camera would prove that their worst fears were just the beginning. So Karen and Mike decided they needed answers. They went to Best Buy that Thursday afternoon and bought a Nest Cam, one of those home security cameras with night vision and motion detection. Nothing fancy, just a basic model that connects to your phone. They told Tyler it was for security, that there had been some break-ins in the neighborhood. Tyler didn't seem to care. In fact, he seemed almost relieved, like he wanted them to see whatever was happening. They positioned the camera on Tyler's dresser, angled so it could see his bed, and that antique mirror his grandmother had given him. The same mirror where this whole nightmare had started just a week earlier. The first night they had it set up was Friday, March 12th. Karen and Mike went to bed around 11 p.m., and Tyler had been in his room since about 9:30. Everything seemed normal, but at 2:14 a.m., Karen's phone buzzed. Motion detected in Tyler's room. She opened the app, and what she saw made her blood run cold. Tyler was sitting on the edge of his bed, perfectly still, staring directly into that mirror. He wasn't moving, wasn't blinking, just staring. Karen nudged Mike awake. "Something's wrong with Tyler," she whispered, showing him the phone screen. They watched for about 30 seconds. Tyler just sitting there, motionless. And then his reflection blinked. Not Tyler, his reflection. Tyler's eyes stayed open, but in the mirror, his reflection's eyes closed and open again. "Did you see that?" Karen whispered. Mike was already getting out of bed. "I'm going to check on him." But before he could move, something else happened on the screen. Tyler's reflection smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that spread across its face, while Tyler's actual expression remained completely blank. "Mike," Karen grabbed his arm. "Look at this." On the screen, Tyler stood up and walked toward his bedroom door. Normal enough, but his reflection stayed seated on the bed, still smiling, still staring directly at the camera. That's when the video feed started glitching. You know how security cameras sometimes freeze or pixelate when there's interference. This was different. The image was stuttering, like someone was rapidly turning the camera on and off. For just a moment, maybe 3 frames, less than a second, the screen cleared. And in that crystal clear moment, they saw something that defied all logic. Behind the glass of the mirror, pressed up against it from the inside, was a boy's face. Tyler's face. But not the Tyler who had just walked out of the room. This Tyler looked terrified. His mouth was open in a silent scream. His eyes were wide with panic, and he was slamming his fist against the glass from the inside of the mirror. Then the image cut back to normal. Just an empty bedroom with a mirror reflecting nothing but the opposite wall. Karen and Mike ran to Tyler's room. The door was open, but Tyler wasn't there. They found him in the kitchen, standing in front of the refrigerator, staring at his own reflection in the stainless steel door. The next morning, Karen and Mike did what any rational parents would do. They took the footage to the Cedar Falls Police Department. Officer Martinez, who'd been on the force for 15 years, watched the video 3 times. Each time, he got a little more uncomfortable, but in the end, he gave them the response they probably should have expected. "Look, I know this seems real to you, but this has to be some kind of digital manipulation. Maybe your son is into video editing, special effects, that kind of thing. Kids these days are really good with computers." Karen tried to explain that Tyler barely knew how to use PowerPoint, let alone edit video with frame-perfect precision. But Officer Martinez had already made up his mind. "My recommendation? Talk to your son. Ask him how he did it. Maybe get him into a film class. He's got real talent. But as they were leaving the station, Officer Martinez pulled Mike aside. Between you and me, he said quietly, I've seen a lot of fake videos in my time. This one felt different. Keep an eye on your kid, okay? Over the next few days, Tyler's behavior got even stranger. He started sleeping in his closet instead of his bed. When Karen asked him why, he said, I don't trust mirrors at night. They show things that aren't supposed to be there. His voice began to change too. Not like his voice was cracking. That would have been normal for a boy his age. This was different. His voice became colder, more distant, like he was speaking from very far away. And then came the drawing. Karen found on his desk on Tuesday morning. It was a crayon sketch, the kind of drawing a 12-year-old might make, but with details that number 12-year-olds should know how to draw. It showed a boy inside a mirror, crying, surrounded by shadowy figures with too many hands reaching toward him. When Karen showed it to Tyler, his reaction chilled her to the bone. That's me, he said matter-of-factly. The other one won't let me out. What other one, honey? Tyler looked at his mother with those glassy eyes and said, the one who's pretending to be me. That's when Karen and Mike realized they weren't dealing with a behavioral problem or a phase. They were dealing with something that shouldn't exist. And if their real son was trapped inside that mirror, what exactly was living in their house? At this point, Karen and Mike were desperate. They'd tried everything they could think of, but Tyler was getting worse every day. So they did what any loving parents would do. They turned to medical professionals. First, they took him to Dr. Sarah Chun, a child psychologist who specialized in behavioral disorders. Dr. Chun spent 3 hours with Tyler, running him through every test in the book. Memory tests, cognitive assessments, trauma screenings, the works. Her conclusion? Tyler was experiencing some kind of dissociative episode, possibly triggered by online content. It's becoming more common, she told his parents. Kids see these scary videos online, and sometimes they internalize them to the point where they start believing they're real. But when Dr. Chen asked Tyler to draw a picture of his family, he drew 2 versions of himself, one standing normally, and one behind glass with his hands pressed against it, screaming. Next came Dr. Rodriguez, a neurologist at the University of Iowa. He ran an MRI, an EEG, blood work, everything you could imagine. Tyler's brain was completely normal. No signs of seizures, no chemical imbalances, no physical explanation for his behavior. Sometimes, Dr. Rodriguez told him, the mind can create very convincing illusions, especially in children with vivid imaginations. The final specialist was Dr. Williams, a sleep disorder expert. Karen and Mike were thinking maybe Tyler was experiencing some kind of night terrors or sleepwalking episodes that were affecting his perception of reality. They brought Tyler in for an overnight sleep study. Electrodes attached to his head, cameras recording his every movement, monitors tracking his brain waves. The most comprehensive sleep analysis money could buy. The results were disturbing. Tyler's sleep patterns were completely normal until about 2 a.m. Then, while he was in deep REM sleep, his brain activity started showing patterns that Dr. Williams had never seen before. It was like Tyler was awake and asleep at the same time. It's almost like he's having a conversation with someone Dr. Williams told them, but there's no one there. During the study, Tyler talked in his sleep, but he wasn't just mumbling random words. He was having a coherent conversation. I want to go home. Please let me out. I don't want to stay here anymore. The shadows have too many hands. When they woke him up, Tyler had no memory of the conversation, but he looked at the 2-way mirror in the sleep lab and said, "He's in there too now. He follows me everywhere." By this point, Karen was at her breaking point. No one believed them. The doctors all thought Tyler was having some kind of psychological episode. The police thought it was fake. Even her own mother suggested maybe they should just take away Tyler's phone and let this internet phase blow over. But Karen knew her son, and she knew that whatever was happening to him was real. That's when she remembered something her grandmother used to tell her when she was little. Mirrors are doorways, her grandmother would say, and sometimes if you knock on a door long enough, something knocks back. Karen's grandmother had been dead for 10 years, but she left behind a house full of antique mirrors. Beautiful, ornate mirrors from the 1800s and early 1900s. Karen had always thought they were just creepy old glass, but now she wondered if maybe her grandmother had known something she didn't. So on a Thursday afternoon, while Mike was at work and Tyler was at school, Karen drove to her grandmother's old house. She went up to the attic and found what she was looking for, an antique hand mirror from 1887, still in its original silver frame. Her plan was simple. If Tyler was somehow trapped in mirrors, maybe a different mirror, an older one that had seen more, might be able to show them the truth. That evening, Karen waited until Tyler was in his room doing homework. She knocked on his door and walked in, carrying the antique mirror wrapped in a towel. "Tyler, honey, I need you to look at something for me." Tyler glanced up from his desk, saw the wrapped object in her hands, and immediately tensed up. "What is that?" "It's just a mirror, sweetheart. An old one that belonged to your great-great-grandmother. I thought maybe if you looked into it, you might see something different." Tyler's reaction was immediate and violent. He jumped up from his chair, knocking it over and backed against the wall. "No, I'm not looking in any more mirrors. I can't. Tyler, please. I just need you to try. You don't understand." Tyler was screaming now, tears streaming down his face. "Every time I look in a mirror, he gets stronger. He's trying to take over completely." Karen unwrapped the mirror and held it up. "Who, Tyler? Who's tried to take over?" Tyler looked at the antique mirror and let out a scream that would haunt Karen for the rest of her life. He lunged forward and shoved the mirror out her hands. The antique glass hit the hardwood floor and shattered into dozens of pieces. For a moment, the room was completely silent. Karen and Tyler just stared at the broken glass scattered across the floor. And then they saw it. In one of the larger shards, about the size of a dinner plate, there was a face. Not a reflection of anyone in the room. An actual face trapped inside the glass. It was Tyler's face, but not the Tyler standing in the room. This Tyler looked terrified, desperate, and he was clearly trying to scream, though no sound came out. His hands were pressed against the inside of the glass, and his mouth was moving, forming words they couldn't hear. But Karen could read his lips. "Help me." Mike chose that exact moment to come home from work. He walked into Tyler's room to find his wife and son staring at a piece of broken mirror on the floor. When he looked down at the shard, his face went white. That's Tyler," he whispered. The Tyler standing in the room looked at his parents and said in that cold, distant voice, "No, I'm Tyler. He's the copy." That night, Karen and Mike realized they weren't dealing with a medical condition or a psychological problem. They were dealing with something that modern science couldn't explain. And if their real son was trapped inside mirrors, they were going to need a very different kind of help. The reflection that had taken Tyler Mason's place wasn't content with just mimicking him anymore. It was learning, adapting, and most terrifyingly, it was beginning to directly interact with the world, leaving subtle, chilling clues of its presence. Kara would be standing at the bathroom sink, brushing her teeth, and in the mirror, she'd catch her own reflection blink a half second before she actually did. Or worse, she'd turn her head slightly, and her reflection wouldn't quite match, lingering for a moment, an unsettling disconnect. It was like her own image was trying to escape or assert its own will. Mike, walking down the hallway, would occasionally glance into a large ornate mirror hanging near the stairs. He'd see himself walking, then his reflection would just keep walking, turning the corner and disappearing, while Mike was still standing there, looking into an empty mirror. The sheer impossibility of it sent shivers down his spine. They started to catch glimpses of things that simply weren't possible. Fleeting moments where their own reflections seemed to possess a life separate from their own, a malicious spark in their mirrored eyes. The air in the house grew heavy, a constant sense of being watched, not just by Tyler, but by every reflective surface. The most undeniable proof, however, came on March 25th, during a seemingly normal family dinner. Karen, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy, had insisted on taking a photo of the three of them at the dining table. Tyler, Mike, and herself. They posed, smiling, and Karen snapped a picture. Later that night, as she was scrolling through the photos on her phone, a cold dread seized her. In the background behind them was a large antique mirror that hung in the dining room. Mike and Karen's reflections were clearly visible, distorted slightly by the angle, but Tyler Mason's reflection? It was missing, just an empty space where his image should have been, as if the mirror simply refused to show him. Or perhaps, as if there was nothing there to reflect. Karen showed it to Mike, her hand trembling. They zoomed in, scrutinizing every pixel. There's no trick of the light, no strange angle. Tyler was physically present, sitting at the table, but his reflection was utterly, terrifyingly absent. The realization hit them like a physical blow. Their son's reflection wasn't just attached. It was gone, or worse, it had been replaced by something that defied the laws of their reality. That same night, the Tyler in their house began to shed the last vestiges of human pretense. The polite nods, the feigned confusion, the attempts at normalcy, they vanished. He had been learning, observing, and now he was ready to make his move. Karen and Mike were jolted awake by a faint sound, like glass scraping on wood, coming from Tyler's bedroom. They crept down the hall, their hearts pounding in their chests. The door was ajar, and a sliver of light illuminated the room. They peered inside. Tyler was standing at the foot of their bed, not his own, but their bed in the master bedroom. He stood there, completely still, staring down at them with those glassy, distant eyes. And then he whispered, not in Tyler's voice, not exactly. It was deeper, colder, like a voice echoing from an impossible distance, yet perfectly clear. "You're next." The chilling finality of those words hung in the air. The entity had stopped mimicking. It had stopped playing games. It had shown them the true horror it was capable of. And now it was issuing a direct threat. This wasn't just about Tyler anymore. It was about them, about everyone in that house. The reflection wasn't just taking over life. It was coming for their very existence. With the threat now undeniable, the entity asserting its terrifying presence, Karen and Mike realized they couldn't rely on conventional explanations any longer. This wasn't medical, psychological, or a prank. This was something else entirely. And if they were going to save their son, they had to understand what they were truly fighting. Their next steps would lead them down paths they never imagined, to places where science had no answers, and where the line between reality and reflection blurred into a terrifying nightmare. With modern science exhausted and their son seemingly lost to an impossible horror, Karen and Mike Mason found themselves staring into a void of despair. They tried to get help from every conventional avenue, reaching out to counselors, spiritual advisors, even a few fringe online communities. But no one believed them. Their story was too outlandish, too impossible. They were met with skepticism, pity, or suggestions for more therapy. It was a dead end. Desperate. Karen remembered a hushed conversation she'd overheard years ago about a man named Father Elias, an old, reclusive priest who was rumored to be more than just a man of God. He was whispered to be a demonologist, an exorcist who specialized in the kind of dark, reflective spirits that preyed on human souls. He was their last, terrifying hope. When Karen and Mike finally reached Father Elias' secluded ancient home, filled with worn crucifixes and protective talismans, he listened to their impossible story with grim, understanding eyes. He didn't scoff at the security footage. Instead, he studied it, his face etched with a grave knowledge. "Mirrors," Father Elias stated, his voice a low, resonant rumble, "are ancient thresholds, not merely glass, but thin places between worlds, doors that don't open until someone asks." He confirmed their deepest fear. Tyler Mason had not just played a game, he had extended an invitation. He had invited something in, a parasitic entity from the reflected dimension that had answered his call and taken his place. The true Tyler, he explained, was trapped on the other side, being slowly consumed. To get Tyler back, Father Elias explained, the door had to be reopened and the trade reversed. It would be a perilous, exacting ritual, requiring a precise alignment of forces. That night, in Tyler's bedroom, under the eerie glow of carefully placed candles, they began. Father Elias chanted ancient incantations, his voice weaving through the tense silence. Mirrors, imbued with protective sigils, were set facing each other, creating a dizzying, recursive tunnel of reflections. Mike gripped Karen's hand, both their gazes fixed on the central antique mirror, the one where it all began. The air grew heavy, crackling with an unseen energy. The entity inhabiting Tyler stiffened, its glassy eyes wide with a cold, desperate panic as the ritual reached its climax. Then, at exactly 3:33 a.m., a sound rang through the house. Not just a faint noise, but a sharp, deafening crack that echoed through the silent night. It was a sound of glass shattering. As they gathered the components, the Tyler in their house sensed the impending threat. His mimicry faltered. They found him guarding the antique mirror at night, eyes blazing with alien fury. He hissed, "He's mine now. You're next." The details of the ritual, of what truly transpired that night, remained shrouded in secrecy. What is known is that the antique mirror from Tyler's bedroom was shattered into countless fragments. And the next morning, Tyler Mason, he came back. He was different. His genuine laugh returned, his familiar voice, his memory of his childhood, his parents, his friends. The strange left-handedness was gone, but he didn't remember anything from the last 3 weeks. Nothing of a switch, the bizarre behavior, the fear he instilled, or the desperate search for help, except one thing. He would shiver, even in a warm room, claiming he was cold. He told his parents that everything on the other side was backwards, a distorted echo of their world, and he knew, with chilling certainty, that something was still watching him. From inside every screen he looked at, every polished surface, every reflection, waiting for him to say it again, "Want to trade?" While he was outwardly their son again, Karen and Mike knew, deep down, that a piece of the other side lingered. A cold, quiet piece that occasionally looked out from his eyes and remembered the shadows with too many hands. The story of Tyler Mason and the mirror dare serves as a chilling reminder. Mirrors are more than just pieces of glass. They're doors. And maybe they don't just reflect us. Maybe they collect us. One piece of advice? Next time you're alone with a mirror, try this experiment. Look at yourself. Really look, and then don't look away first. See if your reflection looks away first. Because if it does, well, let's just say you might want to start shopping for a polished metal instead. And if you're ever tempted by challenges like the Tyler Mason Dare, if curiosity whispers for you to say your name backwards and ask to trade places, just remember what Tyler told me the last time I talked to him. Some doors should stay closed, even when something on the other side is begging to be let in. Because once you open that door, once you make that invitation, you might not like what answers. Stay safe out there. And maybe avoid mirrors for a while. But if you think that was terrifying, wait until you hear what happened to the girl who answered her reflection after it spoke first. That story is coming soon. You won't want to miss it. Tap subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the mirror opens again. Share a shiver, stay alive,